sometimes get a little manipulative.
In my view, if a user does not know what they're signing up for, then it's manipulative for sure.
What exactly is gamification?
The core is to understand what motivates your user. In the process of doing that, make you feel exclusive.
At the core of it, the user has to find value.
If I were to just step back and talk about why games really work, every time you play a game, user comes back feeling accomplished.
What could be some of the resources? What are some of the learnings that they should do in order to get started?
Best way is to throw yourself under the bus.
Core of it is your product design.
But then applying the principles of game design would mean
These are some brilliant examples. How do I make more money?
you are more likely to make more money if you were to say work in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Product Talk with Malthi. And I'm super excited today to welcome my guest, Vaishnavi. Hi, Vaishnavi. Thank you for taking the time out and joining us today.
Hi, Malthi. Thank you so much for having me over. I've been so excited to just have this chat with you. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. All right, for the starters, let me start with a brief introduction of Vaishnavi. Currently, she is a product leader with Swiggy and has about overall 15 years of experience. And she has a very, very interesting and largely in product growth and consumer experiences. She has worked in the past with companies like Zipdial, Ola, and Cred. And currently, she leads the driver products. The gig economy part of it. She leads the product growth and engagement for them at Swiggy. And she has been having a very interesting journey so far. Witnessed hockey stick growth at Ola, built for the top 1% of the consumers at Cred, and now a completely different TG, as I said, the gig workers, right? And I see something very common on the personal front that very interestingly, she used to be a part time radio jockey. We need to talk about more that, Vaishnavi.
Yeah.
And she loves to dance and has two kids and loves to travel and playing board games. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vaishnavi, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank
In fact, I want to add this. This one is a very special session because both Vaishnavi and I are part of a group called Women in Product. Yeah, we started on that group pretty early and we have seen it grow over in the past 3 years. It's a very close knit community of women in product and related fields from people from different domains and companies and across different levels and under the overall the product folks umbrella. So it's great to connect with you, Vaishnavi, on that forum.
you. Absolutely. I think it's a phenomenal forum bringing some power pack product managers together. So, I'm so happy to have been a part of that forum and meet you there as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So we are going to definitely deep dive today and get some nuggets of wisdom from Vaishnavi on the area of her expertise, which is growth, gamification, consumer product experiences, right? So to start with, Vaishnavi, can you walk us through what exactly is gamifications, especially keeping the product development, product design in the center of it? What's your definition of it?
No, I think that's a very pertinent question, first of all. What I have typically seen gamification to be associated with is, hey, let's do a leaderboard, or let's do badges, or let's do coins, let's do points. Those are fantastic tools. But here is my view, right? See, when you're talking about a pure game, right? Uh,
Mhm.
in a game, you're playing the game. Game is the experience, and there are many elements that bring that game together. Like Candy Crush, you just play around, you bubble a few candies, you win some stars, you get lives, you lose lives, and then you keep leveling up. But the goal itself is the game, right? But in the context of gamification in products, the goal is something else, right? Maybe the goal is to buy more products. The goal is to book more tickets. The goal is to pay your bill. The goal is to buy stocks, learn a language, learn something. So the goal is something else for that product, whatever the product is designed to add value to that user for. But gamification is then how can you apply the principles of game design to get to meeting the goals of this particular product, right? And what I mean is, um, can you find the core motivators for your user and then create engagement in your product? Why would a user want to be a part of your platform? What is the and everything starts with the goal, right? Do you want to uh, now get growth for this month, for example, or is retention your core goal? But then applying the principles of game design would mean understanding what motivates your user, understanding why they want to be a part of your platform, and then designing experiences accordingly to meet your specific goals, right? And when you understand the motivators of your user, maybe you'll end up putting a leaderboard, maybe you'll end up giving them badges, maybe you'll do something else, maybe you'll do none of it and just tell them, hey, this coupon is going to expire, and we can talk about examples if that interests you, but hey, this coupon is going to expire, you need to buy this very quickly for now. Or, and there are so many ways gamification is getting used off late, and I think many companies are doing a great job, but um, the core is to understand what motivates your user and then apply those principles for meeting your own goals in the product. So that's how I think um, yeah, gamification should start from. Like the genesis in your product should start from problem statement: what motivates my user, why do I need to do this, which leg in the journey. Storyboarding is so critical to creating a good game design experience in your product, right? At every step, what do I want my user to feel, anxiety or delight? Should the user feel accomplished, or should the user feel exclusive? And I done some bit of work in cred, where cred is for the exclusive community. So while the goal is to not make the user, end goal is not just exclusivity, end goal is come here, pay your bills, get rewarded. But can I, in the process of doing that, make you feel exclusive, which is very important input to getting to that outcome. So that's how I think I would define gamification.
I love the way you kind of broke it down into smaller chunks where you start with what is the goal. Because I think, yes, the minute you think about, talk to people about gamification, it immediately starts with, okay, referrals or, leaderboards and badges and loyalty programs. But I think we need to step back and see that who's our user, what are we trying to accomplish, what should be the outcome. So that's a beautiful way to kind of break it down and ask the right kind of questions, right? So Vaishnavi, can you give us some more examples, or probably I would ask you even if you could share any experience of addressing a particular use case where you kind of brought in this gamified experience for users.
I think cred, we've done a bunch of work, and cred continues to still do. Ola has been amazing in terms of building for behavioral design for a user, right? And at Swiggy also we do a ton of work, but I'm happy to share maybe a couple of examples. One of them has been onboarding experience at cred, where we said, hey, let's step back and really storyboard what is it that we want the user to feel, a new user to go through when they install cred and join us in the cred experience, right? And one of the most critical elements of game design is your handhelded onboarding journey, which is so critical. Because, and if you see games, gaming apps, they do a fantastic job. There's an app called Homescapes, which is I think like a masterclass at onboarding. It has excellent storytelling, it has a completely well guided first time user experience which tells you in the game what is it that you're supposed to do. um, and if I were to just step back and talk about why games really work, every time you play a game, user comes back feeling accomplished or comes back feeling delighted, which is what we just spoke about, right? Big games like Candy Crush just give you a sense of I'm now progressing. It may just feel like false progress, but when the user is playing, it's not really false for that user. Homescapes, sorry, gives you a sense of control because you're actually decorating your own house. You're designing it the way you want it. And they do such a phenomenal job of storytelling why you're decorating your house. It's about a story of how a child has to go back to his house, and that house really belonged to him when he was a child. It was very dear to him, and now he's an adult and he wants to go back and renovate. And it starts with a very personal touch to it, and hence onboarding is a very critical experience in gamification. So at Cred, we said, okay, let's step back and see what is it that we want our users to feel, with the goal being, I need this user to make that first transaction, right? The user needs to know that you are in Cred to pay your credit card bill or to pay a certain bill. So we said, okay, when the user installs the app, this is what I want the users to feel. They need to know it's an exclusive club, right? And then as they progress through the journey, they need to know that not everybody gets in. It is actually truly for the top 1%. How can I land that experience to them? Once they are in, we celebrate the fact that you are among the 1% that is in, while there were many others who tried and not in, right? And now
Okay.
that you're exclusively in, the first thing that I want you to do to really unlock the credit experience is make that first transaction, because that's where the power or the delight lies. So then how can I magically bring up the experience of payment? And what does credit stand for? When you pay, you get rewarded, because that's the right action, that's the behavior I want you to do, right? So when you pay, you get rewarded, and you get rewarded in different forms. You get rewarded for being on time on your payments. You get rewarded by keeping your credit score up and running. You get rewarded by getting a monetary reward or a voucher. But all of this culminates together and tells the user, you have been amazing in keeping your credit score up and running and being rewarded for doing the right actions. So this was one um, like a completely gamified experience that we did. And if you see, there has not been a single leaderboard or a badge or anything so far, right? It's
Hmm.
just been landing visually to the user on what I want them to feel at every step. We then continued the journey and we said, hey, I want the user to also come back every day. What are the tools I can use for this? Maybe I can create a quest, a 7-day quest. And every time you come back, you get rewarded for doing the right action, a financially responsible action, which
Hmm.
is um, paying maybe another bill that has been due, or and because at credit you can play multiple bills, what else can you do on credit? Can I expose each of these one by one over a period of time, right? So that has been an excellent experience for me to redesign that. At Ola, I think the referral program was a huge hit. Obviously, Dropbox, the pioneers of this, started
Yeah.
it, and the world has been copying it. But and I think some Dropbox referral program is a masterclass again on referral. But the Ola referral program itself was key to the growth of Ola, right? When I joined Ola, we were doing about barely 30,000 rides. But using tools like referral, where I say, Malthi, if you were to take your first ride today, we both get rewarded for it, right? And
Hmm.
it works in a use case like Ola, because point A to point B, movement is critical, especially for commuters, office commuters, and it is a high frequency use case. So understanding this about your TG and then giving them a program that helps meet your goals of growth, I think that really fit well with the Ola growth journey at that point in time. I think another referral tool that I'm sorry, another gamification tool that we use at Swiggy, which with the gig workforce that works really well, is now they are a completely different audience, right? They are um, for them, basic needs are the most important. They are here to earn their daily bread and butter, and Swiggy is here to serve them for their daily needs. How can I get you to earn more money? This is all
Hmm.
the gig workforce cares about, right? They don't care about coins, they don't care about slot machines. That's not what they're here for, right? So, how can I just get you to earn more money? And the best action that you should take, or the behavior that I want to shape, is for you to stick around and do more orders with us. And the best tool happens to be the slabbed structure of do 10 orders, get this, do 20
Hmm.
orders, rupees, do 30 orders. So he now knows that the behavior I need to exhibit to get more money is to come back
Right.
every day, do more and more orders, and I earn more and more money. It's so simple. And the way then we visually gamify is to show you a progress bar, show you you're almost there, visually tell you that you've been doing very well today. So these are some subtle ways we give them feedback on their progress. So these are some examples.
Yeah, these are some brilliant examples. Could you also tell me a little bit more around how does this whole thing from a concept to execution and launch? Who are the various players? Like, what is the role of, let's say, a product designer here
Hmm.
versus a product manager? Versus, do you also get somebody from marketing? Because it's kind of a playing around with user psych. It is playing around with your business goals,
Yeah,
but the core of it is your product design, right,
yeah.
which should be able to capture that nuances very very effectively. So
Yeah.
how does that work?
First of all, it's true to any organization, it's got to be a team work, right?
Correct.
Although there's no one single answer to this, I have seen it work differently in different organizations. Ola was a very different structure, Cred was a very different structure, Swiggy is a very different structure, Zipdial was a very, very different structure. But maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about how different it was and how it plays around. So, for example, in Swiggy, we have a behavioral sciences team whose expertise is to understand a user, user persona, and help us with tools that will get user to progress through the journey in Swiggy. So they come with the expertise of psychology, behavioral sciences, what are the various ways we can run experiments, which principle to apply if I want to meet this goal, right? They are a lot more structured, and a framework, that the psychology framework that they apply when they come as a team. uh,
Okay.
then there is your marketing team, who's responsible for largely giving us trends on what a gig workforce really looks like, right? What are the needs of this gig workforce? Where are the patterns and the trends emerging, right? And then they work with us in landing the product and the success of the product as well. But it first starts with understanding the user if we are doing a 0 to 1, right? If it's not a 0 to 1, and if it's a feature that already exists, then we probably don't need a grounds up research. We just need to
Hmm.
understand the need state of the user for that particular problem,
Correct.
then we solve backwards of that. So marketing and behavioral sciences team largely co-work with us to do all of the research, do smaller user testing. Is this proof of concept validated? Go on the ground, talk to them, understand what they understand from what I'm trying to speak about in this particular design or this feature. So they are very key co-partners in that. Then there is the design team that brings everything to life in the UI, and they, in my view, probably play one of the most important roles in executing it bang on. Am I giving the right visual feedback? I think, again, cred is a brilliant example. Ola has done very, very simple but brilliant user feedback at every step of the booking funnel. Similarly, even at Swiggy, right, we have like some very sharp designers trying to figure what does a gig workforce understand. It can't be very complex also. Where do they spend their time? It is so important to know that what are the other apps a gig workforce uses, so I can replicate design patterns accordingly, right? So this is where I think the design team plays a super important role. Business teams, of course, to help us, with horse blinkers on the goal that we want to get to. I need these drivers to log in, my delivery executives to log in every day. Now, the business metric here is for them to come back and log in every day, but the need state is, why will I log in every day, right? I want to log in every day because I need more money. And how do I get more money? By telling the driver partner or the delivery executive, hey, this is where you get a host of orders. Now, how do I communicate this to a delivery executive that you are more likely to make more money if you were to, say, work in I don't know, HSR zone, for example, in a place like Bangalore. And now, how do I visually represent that to you as a delivery executive? And the product then that comes out of it is your zone guide and your heat maps and navigating the driver delivery executive through high demand zones, low demand zones, etc. So these are some of the co partners with us. Of course, there's the engineering team without who we can't anyway execute all of this. And then the core analytics team. I think the most important thing in gamification applied on a non-game context is to be very sharp about that goal, right?
Hmm.
And when you are sharp about the goal, you need to be sharp about your inputs.
Correct.
What is it that drives my retention? For example, the input to driving retention is for you to come back the first 7 days of your new user journey, results in better M1 retention. This insight has to come from data for me to drive that experience, right? So now I know analytics and product co-works and says, I need this guy back every day for 7 days. I'm going to obsess about this input metric and get this person to log in, and then I know they're more likely to come back if I get this. Obviously, there are causation correlation always is a fight, but that's where you run experiments and like test out all of your hypotheses. But
Yeah.
hoping I haven't missed any key problems. These are the large set of teams that come together to make this happen.
Yeah, that's like they say, right? It takes a village to get this out. So we talked about behavioral sciences team, we talked about marketing, we talked about analytics, and of course the design, product, engineering, right? And yeah, I mean that's what leads into some very delightful experiences, right? Actually, that takes me to a very interesting next question. All this has to be like keeping the user at the core of it and playing around with the user psychology, right? So, do you recommend, or are have you seen product managers kind of getting to use any frameworks? Like there is this Fox behavior model, there is Hooked model, there is an Octalysis framework that's there.
I think that Yukacha, the way he has described gamification, and not just points and badges, but really understand what drives a user. And you just need maybe even text to motivate a user to complete the journey that is
Yeah.
pending. I think his framework is phenomenal. I also love the hook framework because it talks at the core of habit forming. Um, which is your the cycle that he talks about, right? These two frameworks I have personally used, and I've seen many product managers use around me, so I would definitely recommend these two. I think you covered both of them well. There is a book on the power of habits, which is nothing to do with product management really. It's by Charles Duhigg. I'm forgetting the name of the book though. I think it's called The Power of Habits. It's an
Okay.
excellent book on just understanding habit forming, right? How
Hmm.
can you let go of older habits and build newer habits? Um, Not necessarily on product management, but it's a very, I mean, I love the book and just in terms of personally understanding how habits can be formed better. Um, for product management, I think those two are very, very good frameworks.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And I have myself seen a lot of these examples within many, many products where they have been effective, right? And so I think you spoke initially, Vaishnavi, about that how, the actual games, the products are kind of very inspiring to see, and how the it can improve the, let's say, a user's engagement within a product, right? But having been in this space for a very long time, and especially a lot of consumer experience product, do you feel that it can sometimes get a little manipulative?
uh, See, I think this is my view, right?
Yeah.
There are different ways to get you to motivate. One is you personally are fully motivated. You want to get better at building, say, or you want to get better at learning a language, for example, or you want to become healthier, right? These are intrinsic motivations. These are things that I naturally want to do, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to get healthier or learn a language, I can nudge you by pushing you to do a bit better every day, right?
Right.
They can be manipulative sometimes, but my view is if you can create value. See, if I am manipulating you, I can do it once, right? I can, and I'm your friend, and I can say, Malti, please, you must come to this dance class. It is a fantastic dance class. And you say no, and I say no, there's a 50% off. I will pay 50% of your fees. And I can say all of that, and you feel manipulated because I'm a friend, and you're now like, okay, fine, I have to get her off my back, so let me just go. But if you don't find value in that class, you will not come back and pay every month, right? So, in my view, I think creating value is like at the crux of everything. Um, if a user doesn't find value or doesn't feel benefited out of what I'm asking the user to do, the user is to likely to not come back. I think there's another whole conversation on addiction and casinos, and they're making a ton of money. Users don't feel value, but the industry is thriving, and that's, I think, just
Yeah.
the way your brain functions. It's fascinating. I've been obsessed about this whole release of dopamine and understanding how your brain functions when you get too much sudden high frequency of rewards, and why you get addicted, which is a completely different topic. But under normal circumstances, I think
Right.
users not likely to come back if there is no value, is my view. So creating value at the crux of it is very important. However, I think using these techniques um, do result in better conversions or better metric movement. And we also, for example, in some of my past experiences, I've seen retention also get better, which is a key indicator of user finding value, right? So depending on how you use, I think it depends on that. I also don't subscribe to dark patterns largely. In my view, if a user does not know what they're signing up for, then it's manipulative for sure. But if I can very transparently and clearly communicate, hey, you're signing up for a dance class, not, and for example, I say dance class, but take you sky jumping or skydiving. Obviously, you didn't sign up for it, right? But you are signing up for buying a product on e commerce. Now that you've signed up for buying this, there are only two quantities left. So, getting you to uh, or pushing you to buy it sooner is probably a technique that is very commonly used. But again, do I did I find value in buying it? Do I like the convenience that I get with this product getting delivered to my doorstep? Maybe, right? And if I
Correct.
don't, I'm not likely to come back. So I think keeping it transparent, telling me what I'm signing up for, as long as there are no undertones and terms and conditions and star marks and like trying to like, play around with what the user is signing up for, I think some of these techniques have shown to work. um, the best way to do this is to play with intrinsic drivers, in my view. um, if I were to throw money at the problem all the time, it's neither sustainable for the organization, um, nor is it the best motivator for the user, right?
Yeah.
So just playing
Correct.
with intrinsic motivation is the best way to keep it non-manipulative and still get users to do those actions.
No, I agree. I mean, eventually, there is only, by even throwing money, for example, yeah, for some time you can sustain it. But at the end of it, I think at the core of it, the user has to find value. And
Yeah,
if the user finds value, the user will automatically keep coming
correct,
back and keep using the product, right? So you have
correct.
kind of succeeded there
Yeah.
in kind of
A fantastic learning experience. But just adding a badge or a leaderboard or a scarcity, applying a scarcity principle when it's not required may be
correct.
unnecessary. And I've thankfully been able to convince my stakeholders. But I think one way to do this, again, I'm going back to what I've said earlier, is to really keep that focus on the problem. Um, and another way to debust this is to just test it out with your users,
Mhm.
right? Um, because my feeling versus your feeling, you may feel, I should apply Zeigarnik effect, for example, and I feel no, this doesn't fit well here. I should apply some other principle, variability of reward, for example. And if it doesn't fit well, one of the best ways is to test it if we both feel like it hits the same metric, right? And if both of these are rightly suited to get retention, for example, then what is going to give me that lift? The other learning for me has been one size fits all just doesn't work, right? It's and that is the challenge with this gamification as your product becomes larger and bigger, is different kinds of users. There are some users who prefer monetary rewards. There are some users who prefer um, you know changing something for the society. There are some users who prefer something else. Keeping very personalized experiences becomes very challenging then. But that's been my learning, at least. The way to do it is that raise a focus and maybe test it out bunch of times, see what's working well, what's not working well. One interesting example here was at Ola
Mhm.
in the referral product. I thought, leaderboard is going to be the way. We'll put like top 10 people on the leaderboard will be so proud of themselves because they're referring everybody. And it was such a failure. I did have top 10 people referring, and they were each referring 20, 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, even 100 people. So the
Okay.
problem was not the referral itself. The problem was the outcome that came out of it. What I realized is referral is virality product, right? The
Correct.
success of referral lies in 100% of my people wanting to talk about my the most gamers, people who were abusing the system for money to do this 100 times, and we were just losing money, and there was no virality. Um, so my biggest learning from that was leaderboards is not absolutely not to be used when you're throwing money at the problem. Leaderboard is an intrinsic thing. I want to top a leaderboard when it's a skill, right?
Correct.
I want to top a leaderboard when I'm learning a language and I've learned it the fastest, or I'm among the top Spanish speakers in the world, or I'm the best at Wordle game, right? Because it's a skill and I want to show off.
Correct.
Money at the problem leaderboards are probably the worst tool to use, but this has been a very interesting experience for me in terms of leaderboards. So every time somebody says leaderboards, I say, do it if you're doing it for a 2 day event where you're okay, but a long term construct just doesn't sustain it.
I would like to understand what's your take on gamification in enterprise products, right? I mean, we have some very similar challenges like retention, engagement. Any point of view on that?
Yeah, I haven't worked on the B2B side too much, but I've had conversations with a couple of people who've been trying to solve for some of these problems. Um, I think there's a company called Quizzes, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually a gamification platform itself. They are an enterprise product, and they're doing a phenomenal job of taking learning uh, to a different level, right? And there are quite a few other players. There's also Kahoot that does this, but Kahoot is also a very big player. Quiz is also doing very very well. They aim at learning through, you know how you say learning through play, right? So it's
Right.
not your standard textbook learning. They have almost like a Duolingo, but they motivate, and they're more on the B2B side where they integrate with classrooms and make it a part of your curriculum where you either take part in quizzes when you learn, or you get rewarded for progressing in your learning stages. And they have a bunch of these gamification elements. They do really well. I also spoke to another friend who was working on solving a problem for your sales agents on the CRM tool, right?
Uh-huh.
Because one key problem for at least these B2B companies is, how do you get your sales representative to input the details on time? Have those conversations when I, as a salesperson, is having a conversation with the client. The last thing I want to do is start documenting, because I'm hitting a very core revenue goal and I need to keep selling more and more. But they also face problems of, when do I follow up? What did I speak about last? How should I maintain my relationship with the client? Who else is speaking with this client? So I think there are a couple of these B2B enterprises already. I think Microsoft also has a little bit of gamification that is embedded into their system. There are a couple of CRM tools also that do gamification. Um, in terms of, say, for example, Freshdesk does a little bit of gamification at their end, where the more tasks you complete, the more points you get, etc. Um, Although I think there is scope in healthcare and education and learning for gamification to play a really, really big role. But I know of some of these companies that use, they are not large case studies so far. It's not like they've cracked it. At least some of the articles that I was reading around on Freshdesk when I was working on how can I better some of my gamification strategies, Freshdesk uses a little bit of gamification, but there are, counter views about it on, do I really care about my customer, or do I care about the customer because I'm getting these points? Right. Again, it's that intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Factors.
The moment you pivot the reward system to say every time you close a ticket, you get points, then am I just artificially closing these tickets? So it's a thin line.
Correct.
You need to
Correct.
design it right. I think some things that B2B orgs, B2B products or your SaaS products can do well is your onboarding. Again, there's a lot of potential in keeping your onboarding highly engaged and self-learned, as opposed to somebody guiding me through it. Although there are your customer success managers, I think there's a lot of potential there. Um, and again the CRM tools that we spoke about.
I mean, some of these experiences I have also seen where they are trying to, for example, motivate you. I think skilling, learning is a great example where I think a lot of these frameworks, a lot of these examples can be cited. Yeah, that's right. And since you spoke about these things, what do you think? In terms of AI has like already shown a lot of I would say footsteps into this. But what has been your experiences, and how do you see the influence of AI in gamification?
There is a lot of potential for AI and gamification to come together, especially for problem areas in these fields that I spoke about. I think there's also potential for AI and gamification to come together for your climate change problems, for example, right? But simple examples of where at least I am seeing a couple of uh, companies trying AI and gamification, and all of this is just reading material out there. Is some of them are using this together to change their recruitment process, for example.
Hmm.
Understanding your candidate a little better, and then just making it a delightful experience during recruitment has been one of the case studies, at least, that I was reading up about. But I think that if I can really understand, say in terms of healthcare, right? If I can really understand you as a patient better, or somebody who's seeking to be healthier better, then there is so much scope to motivate you through gamification elements. I think Cult does a very good job of just bringing the social element of getting fitter together, right? There was another app that I was reading up about, and I'm forgetting the name. Inputting my pain levels on a daily basis is not a fun thing, right? I'm a patient, I'm in a lot of pain, but the hospital needs you to input how much pain you're experiencing at this point in time. And this particular app, and the name I'm forgetting, is has sort of gamified that, where the patient now feels absolutely okay to input the pain, which gives feedback to the hospital and also do patient care much better. And that's because now it's giving me the leverage to understand you a lot more better, right? So I think there's a lot of scope there for AI and gamification to come together. There's a lot of scope even in terms of climate change as a problem statement, I think, um, which all of us have been grappling about. But if somebody can tell me this is the amount of carbon footprint I am causing as an individual, and then there's a gamification that tells me today you reduced your own carbon footprint by X%, you're doing very well, you're in the top, and I'd be just so proud of
Yeah,
uh,
correct.
contributing a little less to this problem statement. So I think these are some areas, in my view, where they can come together.
We now have so many tools out there, right, which are can help us to accelerate in this journey of adoption, and then kind of bring in the thought process of how we can make positive actions from our user behaviors.
I don't know if you've read about them, but Alipay
Uh-huh.
started a program called as Ant Forest, where they reward a user. The behavior that they want to shape is reducing carbon footprint. I think they've done some work on this already. They give you points for every action that reduces carbon footprint. So if you walk over using a cab, you get more points. If you take a bicycle over a cab, you get more points. And then there are a bunch of such actions where um, you get more points for reducing carbon footprint. And then you grow a virtual tree. And when you hit a virtual tree, they actually go and plant a tree and then send a picture of it to
Oh,
you.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it has been one of the most successful programs under this umbrella. And they claim to have planted like 360 million trees, over a half a billion users engaged, and they've also hit their metrics in the process. It's not just about planting trees, but it's also about constantly engaging with the app, while
Oh,
also
okay.
being a part of a larger change in the community. So I think this is where there's a lot of power for these things to come together. It's a fantastic case study
Oh,
for us.
thanks for sharing. I have not heard about that. I think the closest I've seen is, I think, when Apple came out with their whole sustainability, that video, how they
Yeah,
are doing it. But I think this is a fantastic where you're kind of nudging your users for good habits. And
yeah,
at the same time, you have this whole metric, which is kind of all converging towards that bigger
yes,
goal. Right?
yes.
Oh, that's a brilliant example. I probably have one more question, right? Typically, when we think about gamification, by default it is associated with growth hack, right? And that is associated with monetization. right? So what has been your experience, any top of the head examples that you think have been very very successful, especially from a monetization perspective, leveraging gamification?
If I start narrating the examples, you'll realize it's pretty much that only around you, right? All your freemium models, all your subscription models, all of your loyalty programs, even Duolingo. Duolingo is like a, again, like how literally like a case
A
study on game.
huge case study.
Yeah, exactly. How they've obsessed about making learning a delightful journey, and then you pay to become a premium user, right? So, all of these are gamified experiences to get more from you. The loyalty programs, the points programs, your, for example, Swiggy One program, where you've committed, you've paid the money, and that's on the principle of endowment effect, where you've, now that you've committed, you value it a lot more, right? And so you start increasing your share of wallet on this particular platform. So everything around us under this umbrella is using gamification to monetize. In fact, apps that are just engagement based are also using gamification, because I need you to come back every day so that I can do ad monetization on you.
Right.
Right? For example, your news content consumption apps,
Correct.
unless you pay to be a premium content subscriber, everything that's free is not really free, right?
I agree. That's like the Uber goal, and
Yeah,
everything that you're doing, whether it is acquisition, activation, referral,
correct.
everything is eventually leading to that with the retention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. So with that, Vaishnavi, we come to the section two, which we call as "You Asked Us," right? And here we have some of our users, our listeners, who have put forth these questions, which I'm now going to redirect to you, right? If somebody wants to get started on this journey of understanding how they could bring gamification, so that due to whatever are the motivations or the objectives that they have, where should they get started? What could be some of the resources? What are some of the learnings that they should do in order to get started?
I think the best way is to throw yourself under the bus, is to actually start uh, doing it yourself. But in the event that you can't, product tear downs, just reading up about product tear downs is an excellent way to get yourself up and running. But when you do product tear downs, it is very important to understand every element and why it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, using games, apps that actually games, is very very important to understand game design. Homescapes was one example that I spoke about. Candy Crush is just another. I was not a, in fact, I am still not a gamer. I don't play games at all. But then, I try and use some of these to understand why they're designed the way they are. Then there's Farmville, which was a big range. There are a bunch of such games which make the user feel a different way each time. But there are some amazing learnings in all of these games. So playing some of these games without getting addicted to them, I think, just adding that caveat there, and trying to get those learnings has been an excellent way for me to sort of uh, bring up to speed on some of these game design elements. Yukai Chao, I already mentioned. He has an amazing book also, but his just website talks about the Octalysis framework. It talks about different types of motivators. He's also broken it down in terms of real life examples, like if that framework were to be applied to, say, a Facebook or a LinkedIn, how would it look like, and what are the different kinds of gamification elements that these apps have used. So once you read that, you then start applying it on your own to the other apps that you use, right? And you'll realize that it's not just about loyalty programs, etc., etc. It's also the nuances of good UX or user design is so critical. Like Notion, for example, barely has any gamification, but they have rapidly scaled just by solving with great, uh, design,
Design,
great
right?
UX, right? Um,
Correct.
so one, I said, product teardowns using these apps. Octalysis framework is an excellent. Hooked model is, I think we should just plainly try and replicate that to all of the product designs that we do. These are great, frameworks to start with. There's another book by Sean Ellis, which is called Growth Hacking, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really talk about gamification. It talks more about how can you just be obsessed about that metric that you're trying to move. So then you know how you bring gamification into the context of your product. So I think that is another great framework. He was also the key marketer behind the Dropbox referral product. So it's a great
And
great.
he coined the term product led growth, right?
He
If
did.
I'm not
He did.
wrong. Yeah,
Yes.
right,
He
right. Yeah.
did. So that's another great book to bring the two together. I think these are 4 5 things that I did to get to where I am.
Those are some wonderful nuggets. I have gone through them myself and can definitely second what you just said. So those are some great examples. There was one another fun question which said that, did you have an experience where you thought that this was a great fun way of gamifying your product, but which failed miserably?
I think we spoke about this. The referral piece at Ola was such a disaster for me. And I thought, leaderboards, everybody does. We should also do it. And then we saw the leaderboard, and I saw it ticking every day, and I was so happy that it's working. And at the end of the after like 1.5 months of seeing the leaderboard, I realized that it's the same set of people lying on the top, just increasing their number. And then we looked
Right.
at data and we saw this is like coming from a very highly gaming or a set of users who are abusing the system to reward themselves. While I was celebrating it for a while, which was a very very interesting learning for me.
Getting into the weeds and trying to the correlation part which you spoke about earlier is a very very important aspect to see whether it has really succeeded or not. Completely on that. All right, so those were some questions, Vaishnavi. Now we are going to move on to the third segment, right, which is basically going to be fun round, which is the rapid fire round. All right, so try to keep this answer like one word, one sentence. Okay, all right, the first one, favorite gamified app.
Sri Ram Mandir. You have to see it. I think it's my most recent favorite. There have been
Uh-huh.
many, but my most recent one that comes to my mind when you ask this is the Sri Ram Mandir app. If I can take 30 seconds to elaborate, they are for a TG that is into more religious, kind very religious kind of a TG. But what they do beautifully is the way they've just gamified the way I can pray to God. I can select my deity. I can select the flower garland. I can select the time that I want to do the aarti. I can do the aarti on the app myself. I can select the bhajan that goes with it. I can share bhajans with my friend. I can set bhajans as reminders and alarms. It's just, I'm just mind blown.
I have never heard. Wow, that's a new discovery for me. Okay, thank you for sharing that for our users.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job of even push notifications. Sometimes push notifications can be very annoying, but they have done such a brilliant job of just communicating point on to increase engagement. I just love the way they've done this.
Oh wow, I'm going to check them on. All right, the next one, leaderboards or badges.
Badges.
Most overrated growth tactic.
Throwing money at the problem. I think I mentioned this, but anything which is not sustainable, your hyperbolic discounting, they all work, but they're not sustainable. There
Right.
has to be a sustainable way to grow.
Favorite product innovation of all time.
Internet,
Yeah, it has transformed the way we operate.
yeah, yeah. Anything
Absolutely.
that has transformed the way we do something is mind
It's
blowing.
yeah, it's very profound. You're right.
Yeah.
One book or product management resource that everyone should read.
I may sound like I'm a paid marketeer for the Hook book, which is not true, but I would definitely say Hook. But there are a ton, by the way. There's also Thinking Fast and Slow, which is amazing. Design of Everyday Things. It is so simple. That book is a must read if you are a product manager designing consumer apps or anything else where a user is likely to be impacted.
Yeah.
Um, these are the three that come to my mind.
Thank you. No, those are some wonderful answers, and highly recommend the book. I mean, to folks who are kind of designing product experiences, these are some of these things.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the part that you were talking about of being a radio jockey. How did that happen, and how did you move then later into product management?
Yes, actually, I was a radio jockey part time. I was still working. I was working with Yahoo at that point in time. This was really long back. I would do part time radio jockey. I'd work during the day, and then I would do a 7 to 11 show in the evening with 101.3 FM in Bangalore. And they had a part time opportunity. I think they still do. Not many other stations had part time at that point in time, right? This happened because a friend of mine would conduct classes for some of her students. She had a training school which would do different classes like art training and then radio jockey training or MC training and a bunch of other classes. And a radio jockey would come to take that training for some of her students. So I said, hey, like he was training them on a bunch of items around MCing and stuff like that. So I said, okay, this sounds very interesting. I generally am the kind who likes to do or try different hobbies. So I tried my hand at guitar once, drums, and then I dance. So I this was an opportunity for me to try something new. So I auditioned with FM Rainbow, and I got through. And it was very, very, very interesting because it's like a product, at the end of the day, where you have to come up with ideas to keep your audience, your user, engaged, right? Otherwise, your ratings just, I mean, the listenership just starts to dip. So how can I think of new themes? For example, I used to do stuff like Hindi songs copied from English songs, and then a quiz on which English song is this copied from, and then I'd get answers and then read them aloud and make them feel special by taking them on calls, which is what many radio jockeys or probably all radio jockeys do. Take birthday wishes, take themes. So it was a very interesting experience. I loved it thoroughly. And then I had to move out of the city for my MBA, so I brought that to a halt. But I absolutely loved that.
That sounds so creatively very satiating, I feel, and probably your first rub with the consumers.
Yeah, yeah. My first experience of first hand engaging a consumer without
Right.
really the product, it's not like a tangible thing, right?
Correct, correct.
It was fascinating, and there would be so many challenges. There was once this time when the music system just didn't work, and I found out at 6 o'clock. I went there. The show starts at 7. I would try and be there at least 45 minutes before to prep. Have my station set up, etc., etc. And at 6:15, I reach, and the person there says, "Today the system is shut. The music system is not working." And I'm like, "This is a radio station. We have to play music. What do I do?" He says, "Go to the run to the library, get a disc, a CD player. The CD player is there, get a CD of whatever song you want to play for them." But the problem with a CD is you typically have CDs with movie songs, and it's the same
Right,
movie song that will play throughout, right?
right.
So then I had to go run, fetch a mixed album, which also fits into a theme, and the CD player was behind me.
Uh-huh.
The mic is in front of me. So, sort of juggling that, the voice, the tonality, and then putting the CD, playing the song. It was, I think that was one day when I was really challenged, both, in terms of creativity, in terms of execution. And it's a live show, it's not recorded. I can't go wrong. I can't sound like a foolish person
Hassled.
on the mic.
Yeah.
It was very, very exciting, yeah, those couple of
Oh,
years.
but yeah, that sounds very, very interesting. And I'm so glad to see that, you like to do things which you can thoroughly enjoy. And thank you for sharing that experience with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Vaishnavi. That was a tons of learning for myself, and I'm sure the audience is going to find a lot of value in this conversation. So thank you to you for taking the time out, and thank you to our listeners, for listening into this and watching this. And I'm sure you're up for great insights.
Thank you so much for having me, Malthi. It was fantastic talking to you. I'm also very inspired by your own journey of product management. I've been reading all your articles and I've been seeing all of your podcasts. So it's amazing. Very, very inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.